All right, our class on last week did not go very well. As far as the Zoom, I think maybe my internet was bad. So actually, I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach today. So again, this is just an example of the modeling process. And in this, we're just going to talk about like concepts and good practices for your drawing. And then you can just apply that to whatever your design is. So first thing we get started, I'm deciding to model from the bottom, and this will give me a straight line that I can use to make sure everything is symmetrical. So finding the center of this object, if I start just modeling on the inside of this block, it's really hard to find the center. So I'm actually going to model outside of it and then move everything inside. So I'm going to start with a line first and find a spot where I want the rear axis to be. So again, this is just my preference. And then I'm going to draw a line on the green axis. And to hold it on the green axis, I'm going to hold the shift to make sure it doesn't snap to a different axis. So I'm going to go ahead and now click. So what this does is gives me a midpoint. I'm just drawing this out to make it more distinct. All right, so now I can start modeling my my axle here. So there's a few things that I'm going to be creating. One is kind of like a sleeve for my actual axle to go inside. So I'm going to go ahead and start modeling here. And I want to make sure that I'm locked to the green axis. And I want this to be a total of 10 in diameter, so the radius is going to be 5. And I'm going to make a smaller circle just inside the circle on the green axis as well. And I'll make this one, I want it to be a total of 7, so I'm going to do 3.5. And I think that one might have been on face. No. Yeah, I want to make sure that's the right way. So this is kind of a sleeve for my actual axle, and then I'm going to create one more circle for my actual axle to be 5 millimeters. So this one was going to be 2.5. All right, now I'm going to start making these. This is all kind of custom to whatever you want your design to be. So as far as the width's concerned, you want it to be wide enough of a stance that the balloon is not going to topple it over to the side. So if it's too skinny, it may just fall over. So I'm going to make this about this long here. And while I'm here, this is actually going to be a solid part. So I want to make sure that every time I create something, I make it a solid. So I'm going to select the different faces. The lines are not as important as the actual faces. So a cylinder has, this one actually has an inside and an outside surface for the cylinder walls, and then the end caps on each end. Make a group. This should be a solid group, and it is. Alright, there's one component. So I have a sleeve here that my axle is going to go inside. So this next circle, the smallest one, is the actual axle that the wheel will attach to. So I'm going to go ahead and push-pull this, and it needs to extend farther than the sleeve that goes inside. Not much longer, but just a little bit longer. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and make sure this is a solid as well, so I'm selecting all the different faces here. Didn't want that. Again, shift to select multiple items, and then shift click to deselect it if you selected something you didn't want or too much stuff. This face. Alright, in order to make this a little bit easier, I'm going to move this out of the way. So again, I'm just trying to get this to be a solid. So with moving objects, as long as I know which direction I moved it and how far, I can move it right back. So I'm going to move this over here, let's say 100 millimeters on the green axis. Now I can select some of this stuff here. There may be an issue that I didn't realize. So I forgot to press Control, so there may not be a surface right here. So to remedy that, I could push-pull it back and start over again, or just draw a circle here. Make sure I'm aligned with the green axis. Okay, now I'm going to select all this and hopefully make a solid out of it. Okay, now I have a solid group here. Alright, so what I have here is a sleeve, and then my axle is going to go through it, and then my wheels are going to be attached on the ends of this axle. One of the things I need to do is move this into place, and then we can, what I'm going to do first is go ahead and create one more cylinder inside this sleeve. Trying to find the center. Sadly, this is something that takes the most time. There it is. And then I'm going to push-pull this thing out. Actually, let me go ahead and move this thing back. I don't know if that circle's going to stay there. Actually, I'm aligned on the green axis. 100. Okay, yeah, it did stay there. Good. Alright, so this, I need this to be a solid as well. And this one I'm going to make really large. Because I'm just going to use this to subtract from the solid. I'm going to make sure this is a solid as well by selecting all the different faces. Alright, that's a solid group. Okay, so one thing that I want to do is make sure that all of this is centered on my center line. So it's a little bit skewed. Obviously, it's not centered. So I need to find the center of one of my cylinders. I'm just going to use the outside one because that's the most convenient. Right, let me select this first so I can see what's going on. Alright, so I should have a midpoint here somewhere on this line. What I'm going to do is try to just select this line. Alright, so what I'm doing here is just creating a snap point for the center of these cylinders that I created. So it needs to be moved over to match the center point that we created at the beginning. So I'm just going to move all of these objects. I should have 3 different solids here. Well, let me see if I can do this. I'll just move these 2 at first. And since I only have these objects selected, my midpoint is going to stay stay where it is. So move them from there to there. And I want to see if there's anything that didn't move. This guy right here did not move. So I have everything where I want it to be, except for that thing, and I need to move it out of the. I need to move this stuff out of the way so I can actually grab that. It's on the inside. So I'm just going to move these again on the green axis. Let's do 150 this time, so I have plenty of room. Oh, looks like it did move. All right, so this is one thing that I intentionally made larger. So it's going to be a little bit off center. But that doesn't really matter because in reality this is going to move back and forth. So what I could do is just eyeball it. I want to move this larger one out of the way for a moment. So just got to remember which directions we're moving here. Move along the red axis. Let's go ahead and go 100. Now I can move this little guy. I can spend a little bit of time to get the center if I wanted to, but I'm just going to eyeball it because it's not that important. And I want to move along the green axis. Whoa. Let me select it first. Doesn't want me to move along the green axis. Weird. Okay, so there's some sort of error here. It's not really locked to the green axis. It will lock to every other axis, the blue or the red, but the green, it's not. So that is a bit of an issue. All right, I'm just gonna leave it where it is because it's just gonna cause more problems right now. So I'm gonna move everything back. So this was along the red axis, 100, and then this was, all of this was 150. Along the green axis. Alright, so the important thing is to move this where I want it inside the body here. Right now it's just on the surface, which would be fine. I can move it up or down if I wanted to, simply by selecting all these objects. And then moving along the blue or the Z axis, that's push-pull. Again, that's the up arrow. So say I wanted to move it just a little bit down into the body, I could do 3 millimeters. Alright. So now that I have everything positioned where I want it, now I need to subtract from this body this solid, which is going to create a hole for our axle to go through. So that's a solid editing tool, and I want subtract. That was I clicked in the wrong order. So I want to select this thing first, the thing I want to remove first, and then the item, what I want, select this first. And then this should be number 2. This is what I want to subtract from. So it removed that cylinder from the main body of my car here. You can see that here, there's a hole there now. And what I want is for this body and the outside cylinder to be one thing. So a solid. So I need to combine these two. That's another solid editing. So you can either use outer shell. Actually, outer shell might not be the right thing. It might close in that hole that I created. So I'm going to use union. Union allows you to have open cavities. So now those two things are all one solid. And what I have in here is my axle that my wheels will attach to. So I'm going to try to move this again, see if it works on the green axis. For some reason it really does not want to do that. Alright, so the last thing I want to do here is create my wheels. My wheels are going to attach to the axle. Let me go ahead and move this away so we can work on it independently. And let's see if I can snap to any axis here. Green still doesn't work. We'll use red. And we're going to move it 200 away. Okay, now I can draw some circles on this. So the size of the wheels just needs to be large enough to where it can hold the car off of the ground. So I'm going to do 15 millimeters. I'll go ahead and do one on the other side. Actually, let's finish this wheel out first. I'm going to push-pull this out. Let's do 6 millimeters. Then I'm going to make sure this is a solid here. Just select these guys. Alright, we'll make another wheel over here. Then push-pull this out 6. And then make sure this is a solid group. Alright, now I have 3 solids, each of the wheels and the axle, and I want them all to spin together. So I need to make this a solid, one solid object. So again, this is a solid editing. I want to union these solids together. So I'm going to union these two first and then add this one in to the group. So we have one solid group there. Now I just need to move it back. So along the red axis, it was 200 in this direction. Alright, so I'm going to just try to see if I can move this thing along the green. Oh yeah, we can now. Alright, that looks nice. Let's view it from the top here. Alright, so what we did today is create a hole in what I'm calling the sleeve, which is this thing that extends past the body of the car what that does, if I didn't have this sleeve, these wheels would just, rattle back and forth kind of crazily. So this sleeve holds it in place so it can only move a little bit back and forth. And then I used just a really long cylinder to subtract from the main body of the car to create a hole for the axle to go all the way through the body. And then, of course, attach some wheels to the end. So that is one set of wheels. So obviously I'd need to make another set over here. And in this process, it's good to make notes. So all the measurements for the circles, if you want to make them the same, make sure you jot down some measurements so you know how to recreate it. All right, have fun modeling.